please search for Robbie Walters wherever you get your podcasts, and that is ROBIWALTERS. Thanks for listening.
What you chat about? What you chat about? What you chat about?
My name's Jake Panayiotou, and currently I'm locked down because nightclubs are closed.
Yeah.
My career for the last 34 years has been basically the owner of two of London's senior rock and roll clubs. Mm-hmm. The first one called Brown's, which basically came about by accident. I always had this love for clubs as a youngster, but because I got married really young and had children really young, it kind of went out the window. There was one club in particular called Blitz in Covent Garden, Holborn. And it was a club that I went to a couple of times, which is where the new romantic scene started. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it happened, by pure, act of God. Basically, I was invited to play poker with Peter Stringfellow one Monday night. And poker being my other love, apart from, soccer and apart from music, I got invited to play poker. Yeah. And I was like the new kid on the block. After hours, Stringfellows at the time, around 1982, a long time ago, but at that time it was London's senior rock and roll club. Yeah. There was clubs like Tramp and Annabelle's, but they were fuddy-duddy, kind of not rock and roll. Yeah. And I was alone, and I was actually on my way home, having finished a long day. At the time, I used to wear a really nice Armani suit, and I had a tie and a briefcase. And I had contracts with the big hotels in Mayfair, which was part of my then career.
What do you mean by contracts?
Well, we dealt with all the big hotels. Yeah. And I had to commission them and collect money from them. Right. A business that was very successful, touch wood. Yeah. And still is, because my brothers took it on. Okay. And I used to stop there and have a bottle of champagne, which was wrong because it meant I drank and drove. Okay. But at the time, it wasn't so serious. Okay. And this Turkish guy came over, and I'll mention his name because I'd like him to hear this. Yeah. His name was Axe, A-X-E, and he was like a really, dodgy geezer. And if he hears this, he'll understand, because he is. He still is. I saw him not long ago. I saw him at Peter Stringfellow's funeral, and he was still dodgy. And this is quite funny. But basically, he came over and he said, "Hey, you look like a poker player." And it was like music to my ears. It was like music to my ears. Yeah. I could not believe that someone would actually say that to me, because he didn't know how much money I had in my briefcase.
Oh, really?
And I had a lot. I had thousands. And then if you go back to 82, so if you had $5,000, it's like 25 or maybe 30, maybe more. I don't know. Yeah. But I was blessed and I had the money. He bit my
Was
company.
this your money or was it?
It's fun, I was the company, so obviously I was chairman of the company. My brothers worked with me, and obviously I had a part of it. But it was like I had the money, and I could, if I wanted to lose it, they wouldn't know. But of course I didn't, and I wouldn't lose it. But basically, I sat down, and there was a Turkish guy, there was an Arab guy. There was Peter Stringfellow, who had long blonde hair and looked like a girl. Axe was the dealer. There was the dodgiest of groups. There was a group of people. They were the dodgiest people I've ever seen, apart from Peter, who was like a girl. And basically, I sat down and I was quiet because I didn't know them, but I'm naturally quiet anyway. Yeah. And of course, the art of poker is not just showing a good hand. Yeah. If you can bluff, that's the key. Yeah. And I sat down and basically, turned them over. Right. And I think I won about $8,000 the first night. Wow. Which was a fortune. Yeah. At the time, that was a fortune. Yeah. And I remember going home at about 7:00, and I said to Lady Pan, who I'm still married to, and who was at the time kind of like concerned that I wasn't home until that time. And I said, I played poker, and I think she was quite pleased because she knew how much I love poker. Mm-hmm. And naturally she said, "Did you win?" And I said, "Yeah, I did," but didn't tell her how much.
Right.
Because you never know, you might lose the next time.
Absolutely.
Anyway, this poker thing went on for about 18 months, and it was every other week. And I swear to God, I won to the tune of nearly 200 grand.
Are you kidding?
I swear to God. And I remember the second time.
They must have thought there was a fix. Like,
well, no, they were dealing. I mean, Axe, the dodgy guy, was dealing, and
Wow.
And he was dealing because the winner of each hand had to give him something, a cut.
The dealer.
So, for instance, if you won 500 quid, you might give him 20 quid.
Right.
At the time, remember, it's a different era, so
money's different.
But he would save his 20 quid because he was the dealer,
right,
until he got 500, and then he would be allowed to come into the game. And because I won a lot, I used to give him a lot. I was blessed.
Yeah.
Anyway, the second time I went home and I'd won 11 grand. It's ridiculous money.
That's a lot of money.
Ridiculous money. And the reason why I won was because Peter was such a lousy player, and he was
drunk? Was he?
Well, no, he wasn't drunk. He was just like he was a very addictive kind of like poker. He loved the scene. He's got his dodgy mates around him, apart from me,
right.
and he would play, and he would bet on anything. I swear to God, he was just like so useless. And I mean, at the end of the game, when we would say we finished at 6. And he'd see all the money that I'd won, and we weren't paying for chips, we were paying for cash.
Yeah.
And he'd say, "Look, spin a coin, head or tails for 200 quid," and he'd still lose. And I remember his colleagues had to go down. His colleagues had to keep going down to the safe and bringing it up. Stringfellas then, Rob, was a big club. It was like one of the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had this incredible period, and what do you do with money? You can't. Well, I could have banked it, but I don't think Coots would have liked so much cash. No, I kept it, and then the opportunity arose with that money to buy a club called Blitz, and it had been closed down for a while, and a club that I couldn't go to because I had children and stuff. And
where was it? Where was Blitz?
It's in Great Queen Street. Yeah. Then it became Brown's.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
my day job, basically, I had contracts with not only just the hotels, but I had contracts with the music industry. And I remember Elton John saying, why don't you open a club? Because we want to hang out with you. And, Elton had a love for me. I mean, this bracelet's a gift from him from back in the day. Wow. And we became really, really close friends, which is kind of a feature in this story that I'm going to tell you. Yeah. Because I had this, I bought this club from a guy called Joe Bryan. He had attempted to open a jazz club after Blitz. And the poor man, he was a big oil baron. And he had, then he'd lost something like £1 million because he used to hire artists from, sort of America to bring them over, put them in hotels and so forth. And jazz clubs, I mean, Ronnie Scott's is Ronnie Scott's, but even Ronnie Scott's, people go there, but jazz lovers don't have a great deal of money, invariably. I mean, that's the way the pattern is. Yeah. And this poor guy had this club called the Canteen. It was a Canteen jazz club. Yeah. And it became quite famous in a short time because of the artists that he brought over. But the poor man made no money. Right. He lost a fortune. Right. And I was at a dinner at Nebworth House. At lunch. It was I can't remember how I got there, but I was sat next to him. And he basically was telling me, his story. And I remember he said to me, it used to be called the Blitz. And I thought, I put 2 and 2 together. And I thought, my God, I could get this, And he'd already told me that he'd lost over £1 million. Right. And I was sitting with this like nearly 200 grand in cash. Wow. And so I was able to negotiate. And I said to him, Joe, look, as the lunch progressed and we both got a little bit more drunk, if I come to your office tomorrow and give you 100 grand in cash, will you let me have that building? And he said, you're kidding. He said, I've lost over £1 million. Right. And I said, well, I've got 100 grand in cash. And he said, make it more. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 115. I can't go anymore.
15?
115.
115.
115,000, not 50, 15.
15?
I mean, it's not a lot different.
No.
And you know what? I swear on my children's life, after nodding his head a few times and shaking his head, in other words, saying what a wanker I am, he actually accepted my offer. and that's how the story started.
Wow.
I landed on my feet with the purchase, and there was like 4 floors which were rented out. There was rental income of something like 50 grand on rent, you know. So he was just anxious to get out of London.
Right.
And I happened to have the cash which it took to purchase.
Yeah.
And so the birth of Browns, it didn't happen straight away because I had a career that was really, really doing well. But because of my sort of love for nightclubs and also my love for music and also my friendship with one or two artists like Elton, he kept saying, look, you've got to open a nightclub. And by then they knew that I actually owned that building. Wow. And they associated it. Yeah. And so my brother, we did an extensive refurb. My youngest brother was involved. He did that, and it took off. And just by sheer luck, Rob, by sheer luck, we managed to get the artists in. And if you start off with someone like Elton, and you move to someone like Freddie Mercury, and then you move. I mean, you know what? If I had pen and paper and wrote down every artist that came, you would find it hard to believe.
How did you meet Elton John?
Well, we had a contract with his record label, and that's how it happened. But invariably, if you're dealing with Sony and you're dealing with EMI and you're dealing with all those big ones, and because I was the head of the company, I was the one that was the spokesman, and I got to meet them, and I was able to to obviously promote my own business. And even once I opened the club, I still stayed with my main company, which was also called Browns. Right. Called the club Browns because that was the head, and it was simple to remember. Yeah. And we became a world-known nightclub. Amazing. And when we talk about people that have been, there isn't anyone I can honestly say apart from the dead ones. Yeah. But some have died since. Right. I mean, Prince was a special person, and
So Prince would be someone that would regularly come, or
when in London he was a regular. Yeah. I mean, he was quite a strange little man. But I remember once when. I mean, there's so many stories, but I'm going to try and keep it simple. But the funny stories. But I remember when Prince was in once. Yeah. No, Prince was in town and he was recording, but he was here for a long, long time. They converted his suite at the Conrad Hotel in Chelsea. They decorated it in accordance to what he wanted, the penthouse and stuff. And I went back there a few times with him. Yeah. But he was around, and he used to. He would do spontaneous little gigs in tiny clubs. Right. He never actually did a gig at my club because it wasn't suitable, but he did a few around. And I remember one night I got a call from Trish Askew, who worked for Warner Brothers, the company that he was with. And she said, and it was a Tuesday night, it was freezing cold, it was February, it was like 10 degrees below zero. And I was at the bar, we'd been to Groucho, so I've got to mention Groucho. Yeah. And me and a couple of friends, one who has since passed away, a very dear friend called John Benson, a musician, and a guy called Tracy Bennett, and one other. And we went to the club. There was only 4 of us there. And this call came, and Trish said, Jake, the artist formerly known as Prince, or the little man, wants to come and wants to come to the club. Yeah. And I said, that's fine. She said, but he wants you to clear the club. Now, there was only 3 of us, myself and 3 others, and the staff, right? So I said, well, I'm going to need an hour to clear everyone out. Yeah. I made out that there was thousands of people there. And it was a complete lie. Yeah. And so I said, Trish, in order to get rid of everyone, he's going to have to pay. Of course. And she said, of course he will. Don't worry about that. Yeah. And I said, okay, let me, I need an hour. And I said to my friends, I said, guess what? He wants to come to an empty club and he wants me to throw you guys out. Of course,
Did they believe you?
Yeah, well, they didn't believe me, no. But what happened? She then called back to find out the price, and I said, well, I mean, even then it was a lot of money. But I said, I think a fair price, 10 grand. fucking ridiculous. We didn't take that on a Friday, you know. So she said to me, Jake, it's a bit strong. It's really cold and it's Tuesday. I said, okay, Trish, I'll do it for 7.
Right.
Done. So anyway, His Royal Highness, the Prince, formerly known as the Little Man, he turned up with an entourage of cars. He used to have like 2 or 3 cars. Mm-hmm. And he came with 2 girls that I'd introduced him to the Friday before. And these 2 girls, if they listen to this, they'll know who they are. And I won't mention their names because they might not like it. But the fact is, I introduced them. And they weren't actually girls that he was going to go and sleep with. Yeah. You know, they weren't that kind of, you know, they were young. They were kind of like affected with fame and stuff. And they used to come every Friday. Yeah. South London girls. Yeah. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the girls came in. And I by then I'd taken the boys to my office where we had cameras and I had a screen. And so I thought the best thing to do is to go and left my mates in my office and went downstairs. He's not one to shake your hand. Right. I just stood back, and if he'd made the move, then I would have reacted. Yeah. But he's then a kind of security guard, a guy called Paul, who used to work for me when he wasn't on tour with Prince. So he knew the score. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Anyway, he went in, and during the week we used to close the actual dance floor off. There was a long bar. Imagine that's the bar. Yeah. The dance floor was behind that wall there. Okay. And a switch opens the doors, and you're on the dance floor, and the DJ's there. We had a DJ always, and the DJ used to record his own stuff that night. You know, he'd get paid, I don't know, 50 quid or something. And there was a guy called Vernon, bless him. He passed away since, but Vernon that night got given $300. Forgive me, because he asked me how much he got, and I said 100 quid, but he gave him 300. And the 2 bartenders got, I think, 200 each. I can't remember the exact figure, but it was like hundreds of dollars. The doorman, who's also passed away, because they all passed away. The doorman called Terry, who passed away a couple of years ago.
I'm glad you're still here.
He got $300. Wow. The owner got...
How much cash is he carrying around?
He had a lot of cash. The owner... Can I swear when I say?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. The owner got fuck all, but the $7,000. And anyway, he went. I watched him go to the DJ and give the DJ his new album. Yeah, the album that he'd been recording here, and basically the 2 girls sat on the dance floor against the wall, and he danced to his own album. Wow. You know, the girls were just in awe because it's the little fella, you know. Yeah.
What was the name of the album? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Yeah. Robbie, you know what, to be honest with you, the story will never come out of my head because it was just so realistic and so funny. Yeah. And the boys upstairs were laughing because, you know, we could indulge in my office and not care about him because I'd been paid. Yeah. But then we came out of the office and we went to the corner of the bar where we were originally, but that's on the floor above, so he doesn't know where we are. Yeah. And he stayed, I guess, I don't know, about an hour. I've won the pools, you know, $7,000 for a night when it would have been just my mates. Yeah. And one of my friends who actually later sold London Records to Warner Brothers for $200 million.
Oh my God.
He's actually a guy called Tracy Bennett, who's a very famous music man. Yeah. And he was actually there. But, you know, whenever Tracy was around, he was a big drinker. Yeah. And he used to drink. And so we would have taken a little bit of money, but probably 100 quid. Yeah. Not $7,000. Yeah. And but because it was a members club, you know, I had to be open. Yeah. And so that was Prince. That's a Prince story, and we laughed so much because every time I tell the story, you know, he was a wonderful performer. Yeah. I mean, I had the privilege to be invited to gigs that he did in different big venues.
Yeah, I only saw him once perform.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I see, like, even with the nods to
well,
the
like
purple.
the purple bit, the purple glasses and the purple. I mean, that's...
Where did that come from, the purple in your hair? Not to come away from the clubs.
You know what, I think as one gets older, one gets a little bit more insecure in life, and so you want something to stand out amongst the grey. Yeah. And I've had it for many, many years now.
It suits you.
And purple is a colour that I love. You know, I've got training shoes that are purple. Everything's purple. But Purple Rain, what a great record that was. He was like... I mean, an incredible person in terms of art, but strange normally, you know.
As a person, he was
very strange because Another quickie on him.
Yeah.
We shouldn't only speak about Prince, but this is quite interesting. On a night, on one of those nights when he came in on a Friday with heavy security, he wanted to sit with me. Although he wasn't very, kind of talkative to me whilst he was with me, he always liked the fact that I always had girls around me. I was the owner, and invariably girls wanted to sit with me.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Girls that are normal girls, some are models, some whatever, they were just girls.
Yeah.
But girls that I actually felt comfortable with. And one time he wanted to sit with me, and he did. And he was communicating with Paul to get to me, and I was next to him. We were sat next to each other. But he would say to Paul, ask Jake if he would like to come back to my hotel, and Paul would ask me. It was really weird.
There's
really weird.
An etiquette to the way
he's just the way he is. And then what happened that night, he asked me if I wanted to go back with the girls. And I said, yeah, sure. The girls, again, at that time, he was the god of music.
Of course.
Along with Michael, of course. But anyway, we went back to the hotel, and we were taken to a lounge, the sitting room, which was wall to wall of CDs. At the time, it was CDs. Yeah. And there was a player, and everything was just amazing. I mean, all converted for him. And we were there from 4 o'clock. By the time we finished the club at 3:30, we got there about 4. And I was there holding court with all these girls. There was probably 4 or 5 girls. And he went off. He said he would be back soon. And I thought, well, then he's going to want to know who the girls are, and then we could talk and, whatever. But it didn't happen. He didn't come out. And then at 6 o'clock, one of his security guys came out and said, the artist formerly known would like you to all leave now. Right. Which was fair enough. It was not a problem. Yeah. Some of the girls were together, so they lived nearby. There was black cabs downstairs. And off we went. So he took us to a party that didn't happen. Really weird. I mean,
he disappeared.
Yeah. So basically, another little story which might be interesting is the Elton story. Elton and I became really, really close friends, and he basically was out of control, as he will admit. He was an addictive person. He drank and he took drugs, and he was just basically.
And this is the height of his success.
And I remember one night. It was 1987. I remember it because if you Google, you'll see that there was a hurricane, the strongest hurricane of the century, and he came to the club, and it was I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And when he was in the club, he always wanted to be with me, and we were in the office, and whatever we indulged in, I was just supporting him and being a friend and whatever. And the weather was shocking outside, and opposite the club was the Connaught rooms with scaffolding everywhere, and you could see the scaffolding, flapping. It was really dangerous, and he just purchased a brand new Bentley, and the driver was in the car, and I was afraid that something might land on him. Yeah. But when we left, he wanted me to go back to the hotel. He was staying at the Inn on the Park, and when we got in the car, as we moved, actually a piece of scaffolding did fall. No. We saw it. We heard it, and looked behind. And on the way back to the hotel, he said, "I've got a song for you that I want you to listen to." And we made our way down the Strand, Trafalgar Square, Buckingham Palace, and Park Lane, and he put a record on called "Sacrifice," which was, believe it or not, his first #1 record ever. Whoa! And it was the most amazing record. Try and listen to it. Yeah, right? He had a #1 record with Kiki D, "Don't Go Breaking My Heart." Yeah. But that was his first #1, but he was with Kiki D. I think he wrote it. But "Sacrifice" was his first #1 record worldwide. Wow. And I remember listening to it, I don't know, half a dozen times. Yeah. And you could not get bored with it. It was that good. And I also really enjoyed being with him because he needed comfort. And I think he liked me to that in that way. Yeah. Probably other ways as well. so basically what we did, after the third or fourth time going up Park Lane, as we came down, a dustbin that was outside the Dorchester, but a metal dustbin, had got caught in the storm and flew across Pike Lane. Mm. And at that point, I said to Derek, he called him Deirdre because everyone's got a girly name. Yeah. And I said to Derek, we're going to get killed here. Can we go to the hotel? Because it's only next door, Dorchester Inn on the Park, Hilton. Yeah. And so we went there, and the funniest thing happened. Now, I've seen an interview that he did with, I think it was Jonathan Ross on TV. Mm-hmm. It might have been Graham Norton, I can't remember. Yeah. It was one of those late night interviews. Yeah. And he didn't say it was me because he probably can't remember. But basically, when we got upstairs, he always had a crew of gay people, people that I became friends with, so it was not a problem. And he said to me, Jakey, call concierge and get him to do something about the wind because these curtains were flapping, you know. I swear on I've got 3 children, I swear on their lives. Yeah. And I said, fuck off, you do it, you know. I said, what are you going to do about a hurricane, you stupid fucking wanker? And I called him a wanker, and then I think one of the other boys picked up the phone and called. What can you do about okay? It's a brand new hotel. You know, it's the most expensive hotel in London, and it's got double whatever seat. You know, so everything's sealed, but it was that strong that the curtains were flapping a little bit. So that story springs to mind. But again, remaining with him, the day that he stopped drinking. I'd like to think, I've never been thanked for it, but I remember it was 1990 and he was at the club again. It was a Friday night, and on the Saturday he'd asked me to go to Watford Football Club. Mm-hmm. He knew that I had a passion for football, and he knew that I knew about football. It was like, that was my life, you know. Yeah. And he asked me at one point to join the board of directors because he needed someone. Because the board that he had were all older guys. They were all sort of kind of enjoying their prawn sandwiches at half time and brandies and whatever. And he wanted something, not rock, I wouldn't say it was rock and roll, but he wanted someone like him to be around. Yeah. And so we'd made plans to go to a game at Watford on the Saturday. Kick-off was at 3. And I remember...
Who were they playing?
I can't remember. Yeah. But basically, it was going to be my introduction to the board. Right. And I remember... something like, 8:30, 9 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it was a heavy session. And we were indulging in whatever we were indulging with, but every item that I did, he would do 10 too. Right, okay. You know? And, and he also had this kind of addiction for eating. You know, he'd go to the fridge and get a jar of gherkins out or beetroot or something. Wow. And I remember he had a white dressing gown on. And he would venture to the fridge because we were in that area, and he was messed up. His front was messy, and then he would drink it from a bottle. He was drinking vodka, but from a bottle. Mm-hmm. Wow! And I tried so hard to just level it off, keep it under wraps, and keep him at level because we had the next day. Yeah. And in the end, I said, Elton, I'm going to go home, and the driver was waiting for me. Mm-hmm. Derek, Deirdre, and he was going to take me home, and the next day he was going to come via my house, pick me up, and we would go to the game together. And by the time I got home, it was like nearer 10, and I said to Derek, do everyone a favour, call John Reed, call his manager, and get Elton into a clinic. I swear. It was, if I hadn't have done that...
That's a big one.
I'm not sure that he would be here with us today. Wow. And sure enough, he was taken to the Nightingale, Chartered Nightingale Clinic in Abbey Road near St John's Wood. Mm-hmm. That was the first one, I understand. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I never saw him again because he, obviously you can't mix with people that you partied with. Yeah. You can't mix with people that that you had a life with. That was,
you got to cut everything.
And I can honestly say I was a really dear friend. Mm. And in saying that I didn't see him again, I didn't see him as a friend again. Right. I saw him about 4 years after in LA, and I didn't know the program. If you're AA, NA, I didn't know then. I know it sounds crazy. I didn't know then that you're not allowed to mix with people. And he
From the past.
Right. And he didn't respond to...
I didn't know that.
Well, that's a fact.
I didn't know that.
If you know someone that's become, that's sober...
Yeah.
The chances are, I mean, not everyone's the same, because some people can handle it.
Yeah.
But you're, the program says that you can't handle. And I would have been tempted because I had amazing times with him. Yeah. I was always in control because I had 3 children that were really young. Yeah. So whatever we did, I would always remember that I had to get home. Yeah,
responsibilities.
And he basically was a rock star. He was a big rock star. Yeah. And he wanted to have as much madness as he could. Right. But I remember I was in LA and I knew that John Reid was having a birthday party at a place called the Dome. Mm-hmm. And I remember being in a taxi. I was staying at the Sunset Marquee, which is where Elton sometimes used to stay before he got his own place. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know Elton was in LA then, but I got the taxi to stop so that I could drop off a card, which I'd written a card to John Reid. And when I went into the Dome, the maitre d' there I said, can I please ask you to give this to John Reid? I know that he's having dinner here. I'd got the information from someone that he was having a dinner. Yeah. And still not knowing about the hanging out with people from the past. Mm. And he said, well, why don't you give it to him? Right. And there was like a room divider, like a really posh room divider. Mm. He said, he's just behind there. So he said, I'll show you. So I went round the corner, around this curtain, this divider, and it was a table of, extreme superstars. You could not believe what was there. I mean, Lionel Richie, Stallone, George Michael, the list is endless of famous, huge, great stars. Mm-hmm. I've only named 3, but it was a table for 10, right? And Elton, Elton was where you are now, facing me. Mm-hmm. John Reid was there, and I was totally blind by what I'd just seen walking into the room. And I went to tap his shoulder, and Elton got up before I tapped his shoulder, and he came over and he threw his arms around me, and he actually cried because he felt guilty about not being in touch. Right. And with that, I gave, obviously John Reid got up, hugs and kisses, and I knew quite a few of the gang that were there because they'd all been to London to my club, and that was the only time. And he said, Jake, I want you to know that I love you to bits, and that you're the one person that would take me back, because I have incredible memories, even though they destroyed me. You could handle it and I couldn't. And he said that to me, and it was it was almost like closure, because I felt that, what did I do wrong? Right. I didn't do anything. He met my children. I remember there was parties where Christmas time when my children were young, and he spoke to my children. And he had this lovely love for me because I was the club owner that had a family. Right. And it was kind of a closure, but nice, because I could hug him, kiss him, and say goodbye. And obviously the rest is history, because that was 1990, so that's 30 years ago. Wow. It's a long time. Wow. Can you imagine?
Wow, you had a lot happen for a long period of time.
There's some major stories.
There's something that I do want to ask, which... has there been, because you're talking about these other people, has there been a time in your life, it's happened to me, and I want to see if anything's happened to you like this, where it's got on top for you and it's been difficult, and what did you do to find your way out of that, that transformation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because you've had some...
Well, I can tell you
consistently.
Now, a story that occurred... Again, I've got goosebumps. In 1990, not long after the Elton saga, we had an incident at the club where some unfounded people, underworld people, tried to come to the club. And without mentioning names, because I don't think it's correct to do so, but underworld means underworld. Yes. I got it. We were in the press almost on a daily basis. And all good press, little snippets, that gossip columns, depending whether it was Kate Moss or whether it was Naomi Campbell, whether it was different people that were coming in, it was on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And of course, the underworld wanted a piece of the action, and this was a crucial part of my life because I didn't agree to it. I wasn't going to be given, I wasn't going to be told to extortion and all that stuff. I didn't want to get involved, not knowing, because I thought it would just go away because I've had no association with that kind of life. And behind the club man was a family man. I had two lives. I had this rock and roll life and I had this home life. And thankfully my children have grown up to be beautiful kids, and now I've got grandchildren. But when I said no to the so-called underworld, on a given night, which was on a Friday, the following day, 2 days later on a Sunday, we had a storming Saturday. The club was absolutely rocking. And on the Sunday, I got a phone call from my brother, who was operations and managing director. And he controlled the door as well. He was like the linchpin because, he was part owner, but he's also, knew his stuff. And whilst I was the person that did it inside, which mattered, obviously, he sorted things out on the door. And we didn't allow these people to come in. And the call that came on a Sunday night at around 11 o'clock was to say to me, Jake, get yourself ready, I'm coming to pick you up. He lived in Hampstead too. And I said, Ange, what's wrong? And he said, there's a fire at the club. We were subjected to an arson attack, which was the most horrific experience of my life. When we got to the club, we couldn't get near the club. He parked probably, near Holborn Station.
Wow.
And we had to run there. When we got there, there was a barrier, the police wouldn't let people through. The fire was up 40 feet above the sky.
Whoa.
The club was burnt to cinders. And, so it crucified me, crucified my family, crucified all of us. And we had to rebuild. It took a year to rebuild, but that was all because I said no. The attack happened at the back of the club where there was louvers. And funny enough, we purchased a piano for Elton at Steinway. I got it from a friend of mine. Because he always wanted a piano. He wanted to play a piano when he came, and because at the time he was coming regularly, I bought this piano. And my mate called Pandy, he let me have it for a song. And when they put the petrol in through the louvers, and they smashed the glass, smashed the louvers, smashed the glass. Sorry, smashed the louvers, smashed the glass, poured the petrol, and it went up. And of course, the first thing that went up was the piano. It was dust,
Wow.
I laugh about it now, but that was really, really difficult. And so I went from being, if there was a high almighty, that's the position that I was in terms of being the club owner. There wasn't anyone that didn't want to go to the club. There wasn't anyone at that time that, even though it was only sort of 5 years old at that time, that, or 6 years old, that hadn't been there. And we got all the big players. And sadly, I had to deal with it because, to rebuild a club, although we went for a much more modern take as opposed to before, Eva Jurichner was the interior designer, a name that you could Google and see what she does. Yeah. The idea was to build a bridge, a metal bridge, which she did, which was a staircase going from the ground floor up and then across, and glass. It's a beautiful. I mean, it's still there now.
Right.
I sold the club in the year 2000, 20 years ago, and that's still a feature.
Wow.
It's now a strip club.
Right.
Which is quite sad. And I think they have strippers going down the bridge of the staircase. It's amazing. But in doing that and building that, again, we were insured new for old, or old for new. Anyway, originally the club cost 400 grand to build, and in the 80s that was a lot of money.
Yes,
but to rebuild it, it was going to be 1.2.
Wow.
And of course it was hard because a year out of business. Thankfully, I had support from the Royal Bank of Scotland. The manager believed in the project and funded it. But that was a real low period because, you know, you just think, you know, you've worked so hard, you built something so beautiful. You're now going to spend 3 times the amount of money. Are you going to, is it going to be successful?
Yeah.
Is it
Start
not?
again.
And it was really hard, but thankfully we managed to get it back. And I think the name Browns is quite a magical word in the industry. And we had Stringfellows where I'd won the club playing poker literally down the road.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to get, you know, sort of people come from there. But it's been a journey, and it's also, I mean, even though I make it sound I'm clear-headed, and it was a blur because there wasn't a night that went by that some huge rock star wasn't there.
Right.
And we acquired parties. I mean, one party that springs to mind was Janet Jackson's album launch, and Michael was playing at Wembley Stadium. So then there was a visit. But that night, Janet Jackson, she was with Virgin Records, and Nancy Berry had her fingers in every artist in London, you know, that was in London, including U2, Michael Hutchence, Paula Yates, which is that night that they met. God, it's another story. No, but that night I looked around and I remember U2 were coming in, and I knew U2, you know, coming in. Paul McGuinness had been in touch, and I'm a big fan of that band, and I've been around the world seeing them play. And I remember they were with Salman Rushdie.
Right.
There's a person that was, you know, there was a hit on him for £1 million. And that day we had Scotland Yard come along to check the club out.
Wow.
And they were situated on the roof because he was in the club. So there's stories like that. I mean, where do you get those things? And I remember another little story that same night, Brad Pitt had this love for George Michael. George, bless him, had a love for Brad Pitt. And
had they met before?
No,
never met.
Well, I think they met on, like, I don't know, in Hollywood or something. No, but I remember George saying to me, I mean, again, he's passed away, so he can't confirm it. But I remember we had like this tiny room next to the bridge or the staircase, and then the bigger room. It's beautiful, absolutely. It was all clear. There was glass, but it was all open. And George said to me, "Jake, introduce me to Brad." And Brad was in the corner, and Brad was looking at him, right? I said, "Fuck off, why don't you go and introduce yourself?" And with that, George, being the real gay one, he was getting a bit edgy and nervous, and so I introduced them, and there were like 2 kids, you know,
sounds like a school like
disco.
Like
George really loved his films, and he loved George's music.
Amazing.
But actually, talking about George, I mean, there is so many stories. But I mean, you got me onto George now.
Yeah, go on.
I remember George. Again, it was the 80s, late 80s. He every Christmas he used to, like, you know, sort of doing Christmas carols.
Right.
And I was one of the privileged ones because he used to DJ at my club when he was with Wham, and he was number 1 in the charts. He used to DJ for us for no money. He used to come along. He wasn't a particularly good DJ, but he just wanted to. But he used to, like, do his dance. You know, it was like one of those. You know, like, do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
And I remember we Andrew Ridgely, David Austin, Dion Estes, his little crew, Ronnie Franklin, who might get to listen to this, who looked after George. We went Christmas carol singing, and we met at George's house. He lived in Adam and Eve's Mews, just off next to Barker's, basically a little Mews house. And it was freezing cold. It was December. Just before Christmas, and I remember when we got there, George had got wigs for everyone, so they didn't recognise who it was, you know. Okay. And they wouldn't know who I was anyway. Yeah. So it was decided that if we made any money, any serious money, we would give it to a charity. George was going to choose a charity, and so we went around singing, you know, "We wish you a Merry Christmas" for about 3 hours, right? I swear to God. And by this time, I'm thinking, I've got a club to go to. It's like 10:30, and we're singing to fucking people that are not giving us money. You know, they were, you know, as you knock on the door, you're singing, and you're getting rebulked, right? And I remember.
Did anyone recognise it was George Michael?
When we finished, I said, "George, I've got to go," and he went, "Oh, okay, fuck this." So we weren't that far. By then, we'd done a loop around Kensington and had come back towards his house. And we went back to Adam and Eve News, and I remember saying to everyone, look, guys, I'm going to go to work because I've got to be there for opening, 11 o'clock. And so when they all rolled into the club, I mean, I couldn't help but laugh because it was a busy period, it was Christmas time. So I went back and I'd say to people, guess where I've been? I've been singing with George Michael. And I think at the time he was number one with, the Christmas song or something a bit major. And the man, the real man can't get any money. And I remember saying to the boys, what did we earn? And David Austin said, 13 fucking quid. So we did it for 3 hours for like 5 quid, not even 5 quid an hour. And what was so funny was I said, so who's got the 13 quid? Right? Thinking, pay me my cab fare. No, I'm joking. Anyway, he said, he took us to McDonald's because he was a bit of an eater. And he took everyone to McDonald's and used the first 13 quid to pay for McDonald's. Rob, you know what? Now you know why I'm nuts. The stories.
This started with Janet Jackson doing a private her after party.
Oh, she was amazing. She was so.
Did she do it? She had her party at your club.
Yeah, she did. She was lovely.
Was she?
Yeah, she was absolutely adorable. And you know what? The person that she married in recent years, she's had a child by him. Is a guy called Wissam. He's an incredibly wealthy Qatari boy who used to come to the club long before Janet.
Right.
He was studying here. A character, a real nutter, a real junkie, a real pain in the neck. Could buy anyone. Yeah. And I don't know how she ended up with him. I don't think they're together anymore. But she's had a child by him.
Right.
But he used to fly women from around the world. He used to hang out with me when he was in London, but he used to literally pick up the phone and phone someone in New York because of the time difference, fly them over so that they would be with us, for the evening.
What?
Nuts, absolutely nuts. But the truth. Another funny little story that, whilst we've got time.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think we're going to need more recordings.
I keep getting nervous that it's still recording. I'm happy.
One of the funniest stories was Naomi Campbell, who I became quite close to. Again, she was one of the supermodel group, and they all came to the club, all of them, at different times with different events and stuff. But Naomi, I remember one time, and she was going out with the flamingo dancer, Joachim. Yeah. And this is Naomi, right? You're going to laugh at this. So she called me from New York to say that he was playing the Albert Hall, but on the Sunday gig, she was going to fly him for the gig at the Albert Hall, and could she have a party for him? And I said, sure. And she said to me, what kind of money will it cost? She's not a spender. She's never ever spent a penny. And I said, well, it's a Sunday night. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the figure was 10 grand. But bearing in mind, that's 15 years after the
Prince?
The Prince thing.
Yeah.
It was about 10 years, we'll say 15.
Yeah.
About 10 years. I thought that was, for a Sunday, 100 people, 100 quid a head, whatever. Anyway, she flew in on the day, I think, on Concorde. And Joachim, who was this world-renowned flamingo dancer, didn't actually speak English. But she arranged a party after the gig. And although I didn't go to the gig, I'm told that he was amazing. A dancer from Spain who she fell in love with but couldn't speak English.
They couldn't speak to each other.
Very strange, very strange. But he was a bit of a looker. Okay. And then I remember, I had made my way to the club in anticipation of them coming around 11-ish. And Julie came with him, but she was later. And he was like, I think he had some family there, so he was at the bar. And 100 people is not a lot of people. People were scattered, and it wasn't very busy, so to speak. And I remember she was very nervous, and she wanted to have some privacy. And she said to me, "Can I, come to your office and just clear my head and do whatever I want to do?" And I said, "Sure." And I had a really nice office. I had a famous office. I had a sofa, and I had an armchair, and I had a nice table and a rug that went around it. like a Persian rug.
Nice.
And my desk was here, and it all looked nice. Nice. I mean, it was like real rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I remember she was nervous, and she was like, I didn't want to kind of like cuddle her, although we knew we cuddled before, but I didn't want to risk the aftermath because she was a bit strange. And she was pacing up and down my office, room's quite big, but she caught her heel on the rug, and she went flying. And as she was flying, before she hit the deck, she said, "I'm going to sue you."
No.
It was just hilarious, She caught, and she sprained her ankle. I mean, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It's your fucking fault. And so we had to then bandage her up and tighten her ankle, and she was going to sue me. I mean, I'm a friend of hers.
Wow.
Have you got your? And at that point, she hadn't paid for the gig.
No.
And I had murders getting the money from her that night.
Wow.
In fact, without wishing to speak out of turn, we had to ask him for some of it, because she then turned around and she said, "Well, why should I pay for it all? He should." It was her surprise to him, but it wasn't to me.
Wow. There's something like, so I think one of the first times I met you was at the Groucho, and I think I was with Sid Owen, and I think you were with
Sid Owen.
Yeah, you were with
funny little
character, man. He's character.
Nuts. I've got stories with him.
Oh my God. But don't even stories with him. Nights out with him.
Not interesting compared to what I've just been talking about.
I know.
That is Premiership.
No.
Sid is 4th division.
I'm not. I wasn't comparing. But you were with. I think you were with Stephen Webster and Pete Tong.
Yeah.
And the thing is
this T-shirt is for his birthday tomorrow.
Is it?
It's his birthday tomorrow.
No way.
He's 60 tomorrow.
No. And
funny enough, I just got stopped walking from the station.
Yeah.
Guys, I love your T-shirt. That should be going to Pete Tong. I said, it is Pete Tong's.
See, and what the reason why I brought that up is that it's not just like people can say famous people, they can reel off names and all of that, but it's not that. It's the quality of that person and what they were able to do.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Anyone can say they've met or know a famous person, but the people that you've come into contact with are literal geniuses in the field that they're in. Like,
sadly, some have passed away.
Yeah,
quite a few passed away.
Paid for
shall I start? George Michael, Prince, Michael Jackson. No,
wow.
It's been a lot. But the thing is, because
they burnt that wick quick, I guess.
Because I never took it seriously, Rob.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't affected. And the funny thing is...
Yeah, how have you come out so well out of all of this? And there's a trailer.
No, but the thing is, people that are affected by fame are the people that invariably end up suffering, right?
Right.
And I remember my children, and I remember we had famous people in my house. I remember once... Big Brian May, he came to our house for a reason. We had a gig, and but obviously my children went to this incredible school which was full of sort of artists and stuff. I'm talking about rock stars, children. They went to school with them. My children never went to school and spoke about it.
Right.
It was very rare. Do you know what I mean? They had privileges. Whenever we went to a gig, whether it be at Wembley or where, I mean, at that time it was Wembley and Wembley Arena.
Yeah.
But we would have, sort of royal box tickets.
Yeah.
And we would be, as a family, I mean, sometimes I couldn't take all 3 children, but I'll take one every time. And they're all love music and stuff. And you know what? It's funny how the years have gone by and nothing's changed for me.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
And I've got no desire to pat someone's back because he's number one in the charts. Yeah. I didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
But as time goes by, as we get older, as I've got older, the memories haven't gone.
Yeah.
I mean, the story that I think beats all stories, and it's something which, again, it's someone that's sober now, and I'm not allowed to see him, but probably of all the interesting people that I had the good fortune to meet and spend a lot of time with, it was Robert Downey Jr.
Wow.
And I did stuff with him, outrageous stuff. For me, it was regular stuff, but we hung out a lot. He came to the house. We did stuff. And I remember, he used to, he came once to do Richard III. And I hope I'm able to say this because it's not a problem for me. But basically, he came over and he called me. And because he was so interesting, so incredible, when he was going to do Charlie Chaplin, I spent a lot of time with him. I lived in the Elephant and Castle, where there was a pub called Charlie Chaplin, and I took him there.
Yeah.
And we met the owner of it, and the pictures of Charlie Chaplin around the pub. It meant a lot to him, and he taught me how to do the walk.
Wow!
I mean, I could
the
walk
owner of
like,
the pub.
I could walk. No, I could walk like Charlie Chaplin, because Robert Downey Jr. was so fucking amazing at it.
Yeah,
and he taught me how to do it. The step.
He did,
I used to walk around the room with it, like doing it. But I remember he flew over he was doing Richard III, which is a Shakespearean film. And all the artists, although he was at the top of his game at the time, he had drug problems, he had alcohol problems. He was a bit kind of screwy, but he had been at the very top. And he came over, and I remember that Sunday he was staying at the Halcyon Hotel. The car picked him up. I sent a limousine to pick him up, and he came back to the hotel where I was waiting, and he wanted to go out. It's Sunday night. And I said, Rob, there's not a lot open on a Sunday night. And he thought, obviously, you can come to my club. But my club wasn't open. And we went to a restaurant, we went to a few bars, and he had a couple of gay friends that were on tow. And in the end, he asked me if I could help him with a certain brown drug. A certain brown drug could be anything, but I think you know what I'm saying. And I said, Robbie, I know a lot of people, but it's something that I didn't really approve of personally, because I've seen people suffer big time. Yeah. But between the time I last saw him and the time I saw him this time, he'd obviously got hooked onto it. And he wanted that drug, and I just couldn't help you. And do you know what he did? He managed to get, he arrived on a Sunday and he was on set on Thursday. He got on a plane back to LA, 12 hours, Monday morning, came back Wednesday morning. So he went back, picked up whatever, got through customs and got back, did a heavy night on the Wednesday, was on set Thursday afternoon, because I went to, the first set was, the actual film was shot, part of it was shot in King's Cross, the old station. And I remember going there to his trailer to see him, and he looked like he'd been up for 60 hours. He looked awful. But makeup, hair, and he was on set, and I remember, him delivering incredible lines of Shakespeare, So, I mean, that's quite something, because, to be so addicted, and obviously he's recovered now. Again, the good part of that story is that he has made a full recovery. And unfortunately, again, I can't see him. I remember he was doing a little play in Hampstead Theatre, and because of the times I had with him, I just wanted to give him a hug and remind him of the times we had. Do you know what I mean? But that wasn't to be. But he flies in and out, and he does different things, and but there's so many. I can tell you now. I had situations with Luther Vandross. Beautiful situations, stories. I mean, again, we don't have time this time, but next time I'll touch on Luther. Okay. He was, the most amazing person. A few stories that were lovely, gay but lovely. And I didn't know he was gay, so I had to find out.
You found out.
It was almost like I found out the hard way. But a beautiful soul, and he's passed away as well. It's another one that bites dirt.
What is it with like this extreme talent with this almost self-sabotage? Is it is it an insecurity? Is it they can't handle the fame, or is it the money or the attention?
I think it's a combination of all. I think genius. Imagine like being John Lennon. Imagine being Michael Jackson. Imagine.
I can't. You can't.
Imagine not being able to walk down the street.
No.
I mean, there are geniuses that could, but they did it in a way that, but
there must be something that's out of kilter, even if you didn't do drugs or drink. There must be something at that level.
I'm happy to be the way I am.
Yeah, and you're still here. You're still telling the stories.
I've never considered sort of not being here, but when you think what happened to George, for instance, George was I think he was 53, but still a king with a voice, you know. I mean, it's been a journey for me because I was kind of, I didn't really prepare. I didn't have time to prepare. I was just basically thrown in at the deep end, and I think if I can give myself praise, it's basically the fact that I handled it the way I did.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I've got to say that my family, my wife, who always shone behind the scenes, and the 3 children that I didn't want to expose to any scandal or anything that was untoward. Do you know what I mean? And it could have gone that way because I was in situations where, not through me, but through some of the people that we're talking about, that, you know, especially Robert Downey Jr., because like when you were out with him, you just didn't know what was going to happen next.
Right.
You know, he didn't actually understand, you know, and including doing narcotics in public places.
Right.
But, you know, there you go.
Did you have like, to the level that you were doing things at the earlier stages? I mean, you mentioned like Peter Stringfellow, but did you have someone that you looked up to or guided you? Like, you can't just walk into and owning a big club and having these people.
No, do you know what, Rob? I can honestly say, in the club industry, I had membership at Tramp, for instance, long before I opened Brown's. So there was a little bit of admiration for Johnny Gold, who's an older, statesman. He's like much older, but he wasn't really. Although the artists or the stars knew him, you know, your Frank Sinatras and people like that he knew long before we were around. But he wasn't rock and roll.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He didn't go to parties. He wasn't, I mean, unless there were lunch parties or they were at the races or stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, Peter was the nearest, but I didn't ever set myself to be, I wasn't a showman.
Yeah.
I dressed differently, but simply. He dressed differently, but outrageously. Do you know what I mean? He was like, in your face with the way the hair was blonde, and it wasn't really blonde, but it was dyed blonde, and it's all over the place. And he, he used to wear lots of glitter and, glittery clothes and stuff. No, I mean, I was very basic and kept it simple, but different. And I never really kind of studied anyone to be me.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something that's also unique to you, which is like I notice, I think we've spoken about it before, like wearing Stephen Webster, like the jewelry. You've got a very particular eye, and it's, to be from my perspective, it's amazing. The art that you
have on, expensive.
But there's a reason for that.
I hope Stephen listens to this.
And there's also like the art, like having Damon Hirst's work, and like you have a very particular. It's not like, oh, that will do. It's like, it's your sensibility. It's everything. It's not just
that wasn't ever planned. I mean, with Steve, just going to him when I met him, nearly 20 years ago, he was a Barrow Boy type of person. Lad from Kent. He's very close to Pete Tong as well. Yeah. Same, they come from Gravesend or whatever. But I took to him, he took to me, and we became friends. I spent the weekend with him a few weeks ago. Yeah. Where he's got kind of a tough wife. He's actually a person that has an incredible eye, design-wise. Yeah. And I liked his stuff, and I supported him. And in doing so, I think it might have helped slightly because people have bought from him. I know I've taken people there that have bought. I mean, it's again, it's like if I wasn't seeing you today, I wouldn't wear anything. Right. I'm not a person that wears jewelry unless I'm coming out. Yeah.
But they're special pieces. Like you can, when you look at them, it's like there's a story. Even if it was made yesterday, there's something. Do you know what I mean?
This one's a story.
Yeah.
Because I got this for a really good deal. I met him for a drink at Groucho last year, and I like that a lot. And I've got other sort of silver bits. This is gold, and I remember saying to him, Steve, I really like that. And in this bag, Rob, I've got Project Waters, that's what it is. I've got money, right? So I know that wherever I go, if I see a shirt or if I see something, I can buy it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Without dipping into credit cards.
Yeah.
And I said to him, Stevie, I really like that. And he just said to me, do you? He said, Pete Tonks just got one. I made 3, one for me, one for Pete, and there's one other one. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, can I have that one? Meaning this one.
The one that was on his wrist.
So he took it off, give it to me. I didn't even ask the price.
Right.
Now, it's thousands.
Yeah.
Not hundreds, thousands, right? No, but I thought, that can't be more than $1,000. I don't know what gold is. I don't know what, I've never had gold before. And anyway, it turned out, instead of paying the real price, which was like $5,000, I paid 2.5.
There you go.
But I had no idea. If I'd known, I probably would have said, it's nice, but I don't fancy it. Because I think it's a bit too much for me, you know.
No, but it's a nice piece.
But, it's... but I've got a really nice collection of his stuff, and I just wish he could see me wear it.
Right. Maybe you'll be there tomorrow at the party.
He did ask me to do a podcast for him. So
did he?
You've got him first.
Yay! Woo.
You will win.
Fantastic. I think this is almost 1 hour.
Has it gone so quick?
That's really quick.
I think we've only spoken about 4 people.
I know. You have to mention your granddaughter.
Oh, Lily. Oh, my God, yeah. Before I came out, she said, I mean, she was like, she really likes her. She calls me Popper. She said, Popper, where are you going? You look really overdressed. I said, Lily, I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Doing a podcast for a friend, so I'm going to be talking about me. And she's quite cheeky. She goes, before I left, I went home and I said, guys, and it's all girls, and Jake Jr. Jake Jr. is looking after all the girls. 5 girls, 6 girls, and Jake Jr. And Jake Jr. is quite a stunner.
Yeah,
and Lily said, Papa, will you mention me during your podcast? Will you say to the man that I'm your favourite granddaughter?
Yeah. That's really, really, really
Can
nice.
I have a bit of water?
Yeah, absolutely. So
so anyway, see how you go with that.
Yeah.
That's the quickest hour that I've ever known.
Yeah. I think that's an hour. I'm not sure. I haven't got a watch on, so.
Well, it's 3:20, so yes, it must be. I got
close.
Got here just before 2.
Okay.
We've sound checked.
Yeah.
I think we've done more than an hour.
Is there anything? Before we sign off? Is there anything that you want to say? Like, we've spoken about your past. Is there something that you're looking forward to in the future? Is there something?
No. I'm taking it day by day.
Yeah.
Robbie, after the cancer, I consider myself to be very lucky, and perhaps if we do another one, I can touch on other things. But no, I'm very contented. I'm obviously just gutted about what's going on. You know, when you think you can help but you can't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I mean, from my heart, I just wished I could just walk in from.
You're referring to lockdown, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, just so people.
The little market is busy. There was a lot of people outside that, I don't know if it's a pub or whatever, but there's a lot of people there. That's the only place, if you go from the station like I did and around Soho Square, and everything's so quiet.
It's really quiet.
Wednesday night, I allocate to Groucho. I'm not sure that I'm going to do tonight. You know why? Because it's like I'm not.
Yeah, there's when I was in Wales for lockdown and I came back, and my first Friday in, this is about a month, almost 3-4 weeks ago, I walked through Soho, and it was Friday, and it's an afternoon. Soho's normally people spilling into the street, the afternoon, drinking, shouting, people closing markets, a buzz.
Yeah.
It was tumbleweeds. I was walking down the street. There was a couple of people with masks. There was people crossing over, no one making eye contact. And I saw literally 6 people from Oxford Street to here. I came in here and I sat in my chair upstairs and I was like, I almost cried.
Yeah.
I was like, what has happened? Like this, and this is the people, the residents, they said that when Soho, when it was in the full lockdown, you could walk for 2 hours and not see a single person. Well, London.
A friend of mine came in at that time and he filmed, and he said he walked. I mean, he walked literally from Shaftesbury Avenue, Greek Street, Frith Street, Dean Street, Wardour Street.
Yeah.
All around, he was up and down.
Did he see not a single person?
He said he saw few rats.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was rat time.
Yeah,
like
rats were having a party.
Yeah.
Especially Soho Square.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing, we can't even talk about it because there's nothing we can do, but it is of concern because for me...
This is especially your world. I mean, that world hasn't even started to come back yet.
It hasn't at all. I've been to Groucho twice a week since it reopened, right? Not for any other reason, but to just give it some support. So I did the first 3 weeks, Wednesday, Friday. I mean, those are the 2 nights I go out. And the first Wednesday, we had a reunion lunch at the Ivy in Chelsea, came here for 8:30, 9, late lunch, and it was quite nice, quite lively, but by no means busy. But we saw the new room, and it was just nice to walk, to have a table and to catch up with the boys. And then since then, that was like probably the busiest night. That was a Wednesday.
The first Wednesday.
Yeah, 2 days after it opened. It opened on the Monday.
On the Monday, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Groucho is owned by a group, money people. They can probably support it. But individually, any little pizza place or any bar, any juice bar, any coffee shop, you can't afford the rent. You're not going to make any money.
No.
You know what I mean? It's honestly, it's just awful. Tell me about Aston Martin. Is that all still in place, or
Aston Martin? Yeah. So I'm speaking to them this week, and we haven't communicated during lockdown. They're building a residence in Miami, and speaking to them about doing something for that, which I'm really excited about. But with Aston Martin, it's a brand. I mean, the heritage. I mean, I wish I caught the story that you shared before we started talking with your car. But it's, I remember being a young boy, and I remember watching James Bond. I remember all of those different iconic moments of the brand. It's British.
It's amazing.
It's British.
It's handmade. Yeah. It's like one-on-one.
Yeah.
Talking about my car, just quickly, look at this Aston Martin. I remember going to the headquarters in Bedford, up there. A friend of mine was getting married who's got this estate not far away, and you have to go through the town where it sits. And coming back the following Monday, it was a weekend, right? And I just wanted to stop, and I stopped. And I met the guy that built the engine, who's still an old guy. Yeah. And you got his name on the side of the engine. They actually write down.
Yeah.
Someone said to me, because the moment an Aston Martin goes in, they know it's like a film, and they know. Yeah. And the reception said, the person that built that engine is still working here, part-time. An old guy, he must have been 70-something, right?
Wow.
And I remember being introduced to him. Again, look.
Goosebumps. Wow.
He was such a lovely man. I remember seeing his name so many times.
It's incredible.
He basically just spoke me through it. Because I never, unlike a lot of Aston Martin owners, I never had any problems with mine.
Yeah.
And I was like...
you're lucky.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, it is a troubled car.
Yeah.
But I never had any problems.
Amazing. You looked after it.
I looked after it.
Yeah.
But 26 years I had it, Rob.
Wow.
It's a long time.
Wow.
And in a way, you know what? Had I not had that experience, there's a chance that I would have kept it.
Yeah.
Because it still means, I mean, it's on my phone, and I look at it every day, and it's just like, and people, for every now and then it comes up on social media because it's a memory, and it's a beauty, absolute beauty. And I had it for 26 years. A friend had that, a very similar model, and I remember getting in it. The chair was so soft; it was like a big old leather, almost not wingbat, but just soft, beautiful smell. And when he started that engine, the sound, it just purred. It was just I could have
like,
given you a ride in my car.
It was. But I think it's a DNA thing. I think that when I was young, I used to sit in the back of the car, and every car that went past, I used to say the make and the model. I was very young, and I remember my foster mum saying, "How do you know the name of every car that's going past?" And I was just into cars. I love them. And it's,
So you think that there's going to be a chance that you're going to relinquish Or
I think so we're back in negotiation now. So I've been with them almost a year. So that was my artist in residence was 1 year. They're starting a Formula One team next year. There's a lot of big changes at senior management there.
When the company was floated, obviously there was high anticipation, and it didn't quite work out, did it?
No. I was talking to a trader yesterday, and he was saying that the valuation of the company when it launched, it was probably floated a bit too high, and it's suffered since then. But the company's gone, I think, into liquidation 7 times in 100 years.
Really?
It's folded. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a labour of love, that company.
It's incredible.
But
it's just amazing, really.
It just keeps going, and it's got 4 models in the new James Bond that's coming out this year. 4 cars, different cars.
Jesus. I'm just the biggest fan.
Yeah, I love them. I love them to bits. Yeah.
Well, Robstar, I'm going to say I was going to stay in town and join the lads, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm having dental surgery tomorrow.
Okay.
So rather than stay in and get hammered, I'm going to let them get hammered. I think sometimes it's nice to to walk away from it.
Yeah. So my partner, she's in Paris at the moment with our youngest, and I'm home alone. A year and a half ago, I would have been banging the door, going out, making the phone call. You know what? I go to bed early, I get up early, and I'm eating mostly salad at the moment. I've completely changed. But I still like to go out and enjoy my company, but I'm not chasing it.
You're not being silly. No,
I love what I do now, and it's a different level of comfort.
I thought of wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But it's got to be done, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, well listen, I'll let you. You're probably going to be
Jake,
taking the piss out of that.
No, Jake. I wanted to say, I didn't know any of those stories before you said them. This wasn't rehearsed, practiced, or staged in any way. And I just want to say it's not only an honour to have you here, it's an honour to have you alive. It's after those
when you think about
looking back at all of that.
When we spoke during lockdown, and
we're going to do it over the internet. It was
how nice is it? Even when you occasionally throw the fuck word, it's for real.
Yeah, it's a real one.
No, I'm very, very happy to sit down with you, and
thank you.
If we. You know what? You never know what's around the corner. I think the story that I have, and even as brief as it is, because an hour's brief, there is so much more.
I know. We haven't broken the seal.
I haven't moved the pedal.
What you chat about? What you chat about? What you chat about? Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced by Viral Tribe. For more information about our work, please visit tribe.fm with 2 eyes. Sign up and join the podcast revolution!